Hi, this is my take on alcoholism and when you should stop, when you should seek help. Urgently, really. So I think it's 4 stages, or 4.5. I'll go through them now. The first point, step 1, is when you're drinking socially, it's not causing you a lot of issues. Everyone's different, but mine wasn't causing me issues when I was drinking socially. I was still having 1 or 2 every day, but it wasn't causing me any problems. I might have a few weekend or whatever, or when my days off came along. But I was still fit and healthy enough to bat everything off. I didn't have a lot of responsibilities. I had a responsible job, but I didn't have anything to worry about, financially or anything like that. I had no children, wasn't married. That's stage 1. You tend to be at that stage when you're young or younger. Stage 2 is when you start to drink a little bit more, generally a bit more heavily at certain times, not all the time. And you might start to feel a little bit of withdrawal, as in very mild, or a few headaches, maybe a touch of nauseous if you've had too much, maybe a little bit sort of lack of energy, a lethargic, that sort of thing. But you can work through that because you're generally fit enough and healthy enough. And you're not drinking the quantity that you would need to make you feel really, really poorly. So you might have the odd day off, other than the feeling off, if that makes sense. Stage 3 is more crucial, and that's when your drinking escalates to the point where you know that you're going to have withdrawals the next day. You can just feel it. You think, well, I've had quite a bit today. I know I'm going to feel rough tomorrow, so you're trying a bit of water the night before, trying to load up on some food, but really the hangovers are still there. I used to get terrible hangovers. Some people say they didn't, but I'm not sure about that. I think everyone has some sort of withdrawal from it. And that's stage 3 is when you start to feel maybe a little bit edgy in the morning, maybe a little bit uncomfortable, traveling on the train or driving to work, maybe a bit of, a few sweats, not sleeping that well. And you think, well, I'm still drinking, it's part of my life, it's a big part of my life. Because drinking is a big part of your life, especially if you enjoy a drink. I mean, I used to love it. That's how I got in a mess. I used to love it too much. The fear of missing out, staying late in the pub, having drinks at home, all that sort of thing. And that stage for me, stage 3, carried on for a long time. I was still doing pretty well at work. I still managed to obviously fund myself, my house, and I had a child by then. I was married. That wasn't the best, but that's besides the point. But everything was ticking over, but not ticking over as well as I thought it would when I was younger. I was losing a bit of my edge. Does that make sense? Not really quite as ambitious, a little bit more focused on, God, I'm looking forward to my days off so I can have a shed full of drink. But I'd temper it during the week. I'd temper it when I was working, just have a few at night, maybe a couple in the pub before I got home, a couple of bottles of beer before I went to bed, maybe stay up a bit too late. I feel a little bit jaded, like I say, a little bit, something's not quite right here, but I still did it because I was at the point of getting into addiction then, I think. And nobody knows really when they cross over from social to heavy to dangerous and then active addiction, really. But I think stage 3 is probably quite a dangerous phase, and I think you should be looking to get help then, really. But after a few years of stage 3, when you're drinking a bit more heavily, things start to creep into your life, maybe a bit more responsibility, something happens, and then you start to rely on the drink a little bit, more than you did a few years previously. And at this point, your health is starting to suffer a bit, your mental health as well. And that stage, you need to be looking at seeing the doctor. Because stage 3.5 is when you really you're going to go into a point where you're going to get to a point where you can't turn back. So between 3 and 3.5, when you're drinking head steadily, you know it's doing you harm, but you're still doing it, is when you need to be looking at getting some help. Now at that point, my ex-wife now took me to the doctors and they said, we'll get you help, but they didn't offer me any medication. Basically just said, cut down, come back in a few weeks. So I did try and cut down a little bit, but it didn't make any difference to me. I still felt rough, I still felt groggy, I still felt the need for a drink. And I was still going out often as I could. They didn't do me any good, but I knew things were falling apart at that point a little bit. More arguments in the family. The finances suffered, or were suffering, because we wasn't doing as much overtime as I used to. I was having the odd day off. I used to take annual leave extra, put my overtime in for time off. I didn't have much sick leave, but I always used to juggle my time around, if that makes sense. So I'd do overtime and then I'd put in for time off and have an extra day off. And so when I used to come up to Newcastle for the weekend from London, I'd have a really heavy session. My father would say to me on the Sunday when I was heading back, because it's a daunting drive back when you've had a heavy weekend on the drink. You sure you're okay to drive? I say, yeah, I'll be all right, I'll be all right. But I used to come to the drive and then give them the illusion that I was driving. I used to change over with my wife. My wife had to drive back. I was so hungover. And after a weekend off, I was normally night duty the next day. And I used to get back home on the Sunday and feel really edgy. I remember stopping once at the service station and thinking, I'm going to have to get out and get a few cans of beer here. And I remember getting out of the car and I nearly just fell out. Not because of alcohol, just because I was so weak and I was still withdrawing, if that makes sense. I was getting the kiosk and get a couple of tins of beer and get in the car, and I had a few and I felt a little bit better. But I had to stop at the off licence and get a few more for the Sunday night. And on the Monday, I slept all day just trying to recover for work the next day. And it got to the point when I was focused more on alcohol than anything else. I was neglecting my family, my house, and myself at that point, at stage 3.5, and that's when you have to get help. Because after I retired and I moved back up north, then I was actively in stage 3.5. I was thinking, well, I'm harming myself, I got divorced and all, living on my own. So I'm at 3.5. I know I'm doing myself some harm, but I'm going to just crack on. I didn't care at that point, you see. So then I started to go to the pub a bit more on my own, started drinking a bit more in the house. Neglected everything, including my living conditions. I was obviously had some cash from my retirement, this sort of thing. I was alright for money, really. And I used to go to the pub every day then. And I started to drink a bit more and a bit more. And I started drinking in the morning and I felt rough. So at this point, between 3.5 and 4 is when you're going to slip into complete addiction. Well, active addiction, I would call it. And around mid-2000s, I stopped for a while, stopped for 8 years. At one point, I went back on and relapsed in 2014. And that's when I fell into stage 4, which is total addiction. It's like being on a cliff edge and not being able to get back on. At stage 3, 3.5, you can probably get back on. When you know you're doing harm, but you're not quite there yet. When you get to stage 4, it's like they're going about illnesses done, stage 4 cancer, this sort of thing. Stage 4 for me is stage 4 drinking, when you can't get back to normal. You don't feel normal, you don't look normal, you don't act normal, you're not eating normally, you're not sleeping properly. And that's when you've gone into it, really. And it's very difficult to get out of stage 4. I managed it with the help of the hospitals and a lot of hard work myself. And you can do it. There is hope out there, you can do it, as long as you focus on it and don't relapse. Because relapse is a danger. So if you're at stage 3, which is when you know that you're doing some harm to yourself, you're feeling a bit rough, a bit worse than you used to previously, and things are starting to fall apart a little bit in your life, that's when you have to stop. You'll see it in yourself. You'll start to feel unwell, you'll not be eating properly, you'll be snacking on rubbish food, you'll be spending more time in the pub, you'll be buying more drink. And you've got to really seek help then before you go into stage 4, which is, for a lot of people, no hope. A lot of people would just kill themselves. I know a lot of people in stage 4 at the moment who are, I'm calling it stage 4, it's just my way of reference, who are in active addiction, who drink every day, who go to a certain chain of pubs every day at 9 o'clock and they're there all day until they've either get taken away by a taxi or a friend or something, or they manage to stagger home every day of the week. And somebody even mentioned yesterday, oh, I hope this pub's open Christmas Day. And I said, do you not enjoy Christmas? He said, no, it's an inconvenience to me because the pubs close early. What sort of life is that? If you've got any issues, please contact me. If you are benefiting from the channel, please subscribe and share the videos on. And I've got an ebook out as well. There's a link on the description part there. I'll speak to you all very soon.